Za'Darius Smith is an Eagle, and I am in my car. Because my oldest has his drumming lesson, and my youngest is over my shoulder. You'll probably end up hearing him just chime in his thoughts as well. But let's discuss the Eagles' recent signing of former All-Pro Za'Darius Smith and what it means. Obviously, if you watched the game last night, I'm assuming you did, the Eagles' pass rush wasn't great. Now, at times, it seemed like they had bottled up Dak Prescott, and Dak, to his credit, did a really, really good job of evading the sack and avoiding it. I have a mosquito in here. Let's roll those windows down. Let's hit thumbs down for the mosquito. But for a team that lost two key members in their secondary, getting a substantial pass rush is crucial. I think we saw last night that Adoree Jackson struggled big time. I'm not ready to just claim that he can't play anymore. He's cooked, but let's be real. Like, it kind of looked like that, right? Well, what helps with the pass rush, what helps with a bad secondary would be getting the quarterback and flushing him out. And look, to their credit, they did a pretty good job of that late in the game. They didn't get any sacks, but they did a pretty good job of just getting pressure on the quarterback. You also have to take last night's game with a grain of salt because you don't have Jalen Carter, and Jalen Carter changes everything. You knew it, I knew it, and Dak Prescott admitted it. As soon as he gets kicked out of the game, it changes their defensive game plan. It changes their blocking schemes. There was nobody more happy about Jalen Carter spitting than the Cowboys' offensive line. So when he is out, I think I got the mosquito out. I think. Sorry. Normally I like to streamline these videos, but because I hate any content creator that they can't even formulate a sentence correctly. But when I got a mosquito in the car, I got to get it out. So you have to take last night's game with a grain of salt because of Jalen Carter. He goes from being double team and triple team to getting, one-on-one matchups with the Cowboys offensive line. And the reality is the Eagles did lose Josh Sweat. They did lose Brandon Graham. So you have to replace that. The Eagles didn't do a horrible job. I mean, but still, those are big shoes to fill. What do? They go out and they get Za'Darius Smith. What does it mean? To me, this isn't necessarily about the Eagles' pass rush. This is a sign of what I talked about last night in the video I did regarding, just my overall thoughts on the game. This, to me, is a symbol that Howie Roseman will not sit back and be complacent. And that was my biggest takeaway over the secondary issues, was that Adoree Jackson might not be the answer. Reality is he probably isn't the answer. But are the Eagles going to sit back and be complacent all season long and let Adoree Jackson play cornerback? The answer is no. Because Howie Roseman will go out and address it. Does Howie Roseman need to go out and address Za'Darius Smith? No. There are a lot of GMs in football right now who would just sit back and go, look, our team's our team. And we're not going to sit there and try to improve it right now. We're going to see what happens. The defending Super Bowl champs, after one game, after 4 quarters, said, yeah, we can improve on defense. His thoughts as well. We can improve in that area. We can improve and get a... He's all eagled up. This is why I do this, like, after they go to bed. Because of this. But not only does it put the entire NFL on notice that, like, hey, we're here to repeat, I think it puts the fan base, and it reminds them of who this organization is. An organization that will not sit back, that will not be complacent. We saw it a couple years ago, right? Like, their safety issue was real after they let C.J. Gardner-Johnson go. What do? They trade for Kevin Byard. Did it work out? No. Do I blame the Eagles for that situation? I mean, I blame the organization because you put a dipshit in Sean Desai and Matt Patricia in charge of the defense where everybody looked like they forgot how to play football. I don't necessarily blame Kevin Byard, but the thought process behind that move was logical. We're going to go out and we're going to have a former All-Pro. And if you think that in 3 weeks and 4 weeks, if Adoree Jackson continues to look like burnt toast, if you think that the Eagles are just going to allow that to happen, you're kidding yourself. Now, Adoree Jackson might lose his starting spot to Kelee Ringo, but if Kelee Ringo isn't the answer, you know what's going to happen? They're going to go out there and they're going to address it. The Eagles did not need to make this move, but they did it. And they put the entire NFL on notice by doing so. Za'Darius Smith should be able to help with the pass rush, but this is a typical Eagles move, meaning they went out there and they bolstered their depth with a veteran, with a former All-Pro, and they just made their team better. It's like Ndamukong Suh. I think the year they went to the Super Bowl, right? I think that was the year they went to the Super Bowl. If not, it was the year that like everything came undone. But I'm pretty sure it was the year they went to the Super Bowl. Like, did they need to go out there and make the Ndamukong Suh trade? No. Not the trade, the signing. But they did it. to bolster the room, to get a vet in there. And now you're also seeing that the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles, which I feel like this has been the case for a while, are that organization where if you were a veteran and you want to win and you want to come to a winning culture, you're coming to Philadelphia. You're coming, you might take a pay cut, but you're coming because you're looking at a chance to ring chase. So I love this move. I can't love it anymore, but I do think that there's a more underlying meaning to it. And I think that that message is pretty clear that if you weren't a fan of the secondary last night, if you were worried about Adoree Jackson who looked like a turnstile out there and, reeked of burnt toast, guess what? If it doesn't improve, the Eagles will improve, and they'll make a move. Now's the part where I ask you guys to subscribe to the channel. If you don't want to subscribe after this video, I understand it. I'm a man in my car with a toddler. Let's be real. This has not been my best effort. Could I have waited 2 hours until they go to bed and record something? Yes. Should I have? Probably. But guess what? We grind away. We grind away as my oldest is out there drumming his little heart out. So, yeah. All right, go Birds.
I hate quoting him, but I feel like I have to right now. As Aaron Rodgers would say, relax. Because here's the thing. After the Eagles won 24-20 against the Cowboys in Week 1, if you were to listen to sports radio, if you were to read Twitter, it is going to seem like they lost. 100% it is going to seem like they lost and they looked bad. Now, one of those things is partly true, but they won. And that's really all that matters, is that they won. They won 24-20 and it wasn't pretty and it was ugly and there's a lot of takeaways. First of all, Jalen Carter has to be smarter than that. Has to. Because after the video comes out of Jalen Carter spitting on Dak Prescott, you immediately go like, dude, how dumb are you? The referee is literally right there. You are way too important of a player for this defense to have that happen. And immediately you see the impact. You see Dallas, as soon as they find out that he is out, switch to a run-heavy attack, which opened up the pass, and CeeDee Lamb is catching everything. That is the Jalen Carter effect. Because now you need to play Jordan Davis, who is virtually useless. I'll say it. He sucks. You have to play him more instead of having Jalen Carter next to Moro Ojomo. And you saw the impact. Javonte Williams is out there looking like, I don't know, some Emmett guy. But then you get the video of what actually transpired, which was Dak Prescott, veteran move, baiting Jalen Carter. And a lot of Eagles fans will sit there and they'll be Leo, right? Pointing and go, oh, look at the tape. That's a veteran move. That is Dak Prescott knowing full well what he's doing. Knowing, I'm going to spit in his direction. I'm not going to spit on him. But he's such a hothead that he'll come over and he might do some dumb stuff. And guess what? It might end up getting him kicked out of the game. Oh my God, he just did it. I got him kicked out of the game. And I'll tell you, like I would hope to God that CeeDee Lamb would start spitting on some of the Eagles because the way he performed in the first half at least. But that is a veteran move by Dak. It is smart. And it will not be the first time now where opposing players tried to goat Jalen Carter into doing something stupid to get kicked out of the game. But it had an effect, right? I mean, it clearly had an effect. The secondary did not look good. Adoree Jackson, I was told there was a very strong smell of burnt toast in the link, and it was all from Adoree Jackson. Which makes you wonder how bad is Kelee Ringo if Adoree Jackson is a starter. Because, man, he looked bad. Conversely, this was the worst game I've probably ever seen Quinyon Mitchell play, and that makes you wonder, should they have kept Darius Slay? Because Quinyon Mitchell was so shut down, and Darius Slay might have had a big factor in that. Because with Adoree Jackson, he was letting me and you catch balls. Offense looks really strong early on. You're not worried about that. They look as advertised. But the defense is clearly struggling without Jalen Carter. But that game was so weird in so many ways because it is a tale of two halves for both sides of the football. The first half, the offense could not be stopped. They're scoring on every drive, every time they have the ball. The defense, meanwhile, couldn't stop you and me. And then they come out for the second half, and it is completely switched, where the offense is struggling. The offense can't really get anything going. The defense, meanwhile, is playing lights-out football, causing turnovers, and looking like they should be picking off every ball. But also then you've got the A.J. Brown factor. Now, we all know that by the time I post this video, the post-game comments would have already happened, and the number one question would be about Jalen Carter, and the number two question would be, what the hell was your game plan with A.J. Brown? How does A.J. Brown go an entire game, essentially, with never getting targeted until 2 minutes left in the game? That is absurd. And it reminded me a lot of 2017, them not getting LeGarrette Blount the ball at all against the Chiefs. Just like the Jalen Carter thing, it reminded me a lot of the Jeremiah Trotter situation in 2005. They go down to Atlanta to start the season. They just went to the Super Bowl. Like Reese knew that the Eagles broke down to the 50-yard line. He told the Falcons players at the time, like, yeah, we're going to stop that. And Jeremiah Trotter gets kicked out of the game. The Eagles are forced to start Mike Labinjo, and he was last seen in the CFL. It was a disaster. The Eagles lost that game. They won this game. So that goes to my Patty positivity point of view on this. How many more games this season are we going to have A.J. Brown not get targeted, A.J. Brown not score, obviously, Saquon Barkley held under 100 yards, and Jalen Carter not be available? How many games this year does all of that happen? How many more? Maybe one of those happened, right? And it's probably most likely the Jalen Carter situation, and you would figure that would either be because of suspension, which he shouldn't be suspended, or injury. Probably pretty few, you know? So to me, this game reminded me a lot of the Packers game, the Packers playoff game. And the reason I say that is because after the Packers playoff game, a lot of people were saying, if the Eagles look like that next week, they're going to be in trouble. And I was sitting there going, yeah, but let's break this down. What are the odds that the Eagles go another week without Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, or Saquon Barkley getting in the end zone? Slim and none. And the next week they played the Rams, and they ended up winning. For a while there, that game looked like it was in hand, and then the Rams kind of came back. But eventually, the Eagles closed it out. So when you factor in the weirdness of this game, when you factor in what was missing for the Eagles in the sense of like an A.J. Brown game plan, Jalen Carter completely, Landon Dickerson was out for a little bit, but he's always banged up, it seems like. When you factor all that in, I think you can take a lot of good from this game, because I don't see that happening again. I don't see what we just watched happening again. It was a weird game. All right? But I would be shocked if A.J. Brown is not force-fed the ball next week. Their offense looked great, and I was right there with you in the first half going like, okay, they're scoring, but like, what's up with A.J. Brown? Like, this is weird. But you know what? At the end of the day, they won. And I'm saying this as a guy who lost money in the game because I bet it, right? That's probably a lot of you did. And, they didn't cover. But all that matters is they won. And I think when you factor in how a season goes in the NFL, I think when you look back and you're in the playoffs and, you win a Super Bowl and you look back at all those games where they were like this, where they were close, and maybe they shouldn't have been close, and maybe you thought they were going to hammer the team and they didn't, and it was closer than you think. This is the difference, and this is the separation between good teams and bad teams. Good teams do what the Eagles did. Good teams close the game out. Did they luck into some of it because CeeDee Lamb could have caught the ball? Absolutely they did. But on the flip side, the Eagles should have picked off a couple of those balls. The Eagles' defense came up clutch when they needed to. When the offense wasn't there, which was, second half, the Eagles' defense was there to pick them up. That is the sign of a good team. My worry for this is the fact that, and this was my worry going into the season, I did a whole video on this. My worry is that Nick Sirianni had his imprints, his fingerprints a little bit on the offensive game plan, and maybe that's why we didn't see A.J. Brown. And I just say that because every time Nick Sirianni touches the offense gets neutered, and the offense doesn't look great. To be fair, though, the offense looked fine in that first half. And that is just pure tinfoil hat pat, just guessing. But sometimes this shit happens. And look, it is inexcusable, and it's on A.J. Brown to go up to Jalen Hurts. It's on Jalen Hurts to recognize he needs to get the ball to A.J. Brown. It's on Kevin Patula. It's on Nick Sirianni. It's on a lot of them. But at the end of the day, does it really matter? If it continues, yes. But do you think it's going to continue? Do you realistically think that A.J. Brown is going to have a similar game for the rest of the season? You don't. Neither do I. They won. It wasn't pretty. It was ugly, but they won. And as the old adage goes, divisional games are always close, yada, yada, yada. There was some good to take out of this game. And it's not just the anomalies that you probably won't see. I thought Jahad Campbell looked good. I was not happy with I thought the refereeing is actually pretty good, other than the taunting call. If they're going to start calling that, that's horseshit. That's horseshit. These are grown men. These are professional athletes, and we're We're calling 15-yard taunting calls because a guy flexed over somebody. Get real. But no, look, I think that there was some good. I think the Adoree Jackson thing is an issue. But we also all know that if it continues to be an issue and the cornerback spot is an issue, that Howie Roseman will go out and address it. He'll trade for a cornerback. He'll trade for a former All-Pro, former Pro Bowler, for whatever. He'll get a guy in here that can do the job if Adoree Jackson can't. So I don't foresee what we saw tonight, which was one of the weirdest games I've ever seen. In terms of like CeeDee Lamb catching everything. All of a sudden, CeeDee Lamb can't catch anything. The Jalen Carter thing, the A.J. Brown thing, the lightning delay, all of it. It was just fucking weird. But they won. Don't let that fall by the wayside. Don't forget that. Was it annoying? Was it pleasant? Was I sitting there at times going, this kind of sucks? Yes. But it's a lot better than a loss, folks. Now's the part where I ask you guys to hit the subscribe button. Because I'm desperate. I need subscribers. I need 1,000. So please subscribe. You can like, you can dislike, you can comment, whatever, but subscribe is the most important thing. I will leave. And as always,
FanDuel to the rescue. Who would have seen this coming? This is America. If you're unaware of what's going on in Philadelphia currently, there is a public transportation budget cut that has affected the Philadelphia area. And I'm not going to get into the politics of the matter. I'm sure there are people that are going to be like, it's Republicans' fault, it's Democrats' fault. But honestly, it's both their fault. This is like when the NHL would have lockouts, and it's like, well, let's blame the owners, let's blame the players. Like, both of them not being able to come together in an agreement is what's the problem. And the fact that politicians have allowed the SEPTA problem to get to this point, that is really the issue, because it's embarrassing. It's an embarrassment for the state, and it's embarrassment for those running and getting paid way too much money to just squabble and bicker in the state's capital of Harrisburg. But the fact is that SEPTA has been essentially defunded. They had to cut a bunch of bus routes and lines, and one of those lines being the transportation that would allow people to get to and from the stadium, because when a game would go on, SEPTA would boost up traffic in regards to their trains. It makes sense, right? You've got 40,000 people heading to a game. You figure half of those people might take public transportation. Let's get more frequent trains from the Broad Street line to take people to and from and get them out of there quickly and safely. Makes sense. Well, with these budget cuts, SEPTA was going to be forced to act like the game wasn't going on. And it was just a normal Wednesday with nothing going on down in South Philly. And obviously that would make getting to and from a game an absolute living nightmare. Until FanDuel came in, the last minute. And by last minute, I mean today, Wednesday. They came in and said, you know what? We've taken so much money from you people. We've taken so much. We're actually going to fund it. You know what? We're going to fund SEPTA for you guys. So if you want to get to and from the game quickly, we got you. Just use promo code SEPTA. Good on them. I mean, this is a marketing no-brainer for me. That a sports book stepped in. They get the good publicity. They get the pat on the back, the that a boy, by not just people going to the game, but people like me who aren't going to go to the game. I'm sitting at home. I'm watching it on my couch. Might even live stream it on this channel. But it's a good marketing gimmick by them, but it's still an embarrassment that a sports book had to step in because politicians couldn't get their shit together. Because people in Pennsylvania want to stick it to people in Philadelphia. So by golly, we're not funding your shit. Like, that's ridiculous. And yet here we are. Because this is what it's come to. That a sports book had to step in and say, hey, so it's not going to be an utter disaster down there? We, FanDuel, will step in and we will fund it for a day. Now, I don't know what happens in week 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But this has been a problem, not just with the city. I'm sorry, not just with this week, but with the city as a whole. Because I think we like to look at Philadelphia as being a very, very tough city. There's a buck. I think I got it. We look at Philadelphia as a very, very tough city in terms of getting to and from the stadium. And that's because it is. But it shouldn't be. I mean, when you really think about it, there are plenty of side streets. There are plenty of roads. There are plenty of exits. You can get on 95. You can get on 76 to and from. Like, the bridge is right there.
You can go down past the Novacare complex and hop on 76 that way. Like, there are so many exits that you can take to get in and out of that stadium, and yet we make it as difficult as humanly possible for people to get out of the stadium. And I do not understand it. I do not understand how the city, how Cheryl Parker, hey, use some of that money that you get paid, your paycheck that you reminded everybody about during the sanitation strike. Use some of that. Use some city funding. Take it out of your own pocket. I don't care what you do. But hire some 20-year-old from MIT, some engineer, to figure out a good way to get people in and out of the stadium. I'll tell you a quick story that you didn't ask for. But we had to do the pregame show for 97.5 The Fanatic down at Xfinity Live. And we had to do that all season long. And getting down there was a nightmare, as you can imagine. But we were getting down there at a point where, it was like 3 hours before the game, so it wasn't too bad, but it still wasn't fun getting down there. You got into a rhythm of how you were going to get to the parking lot where we parked to get to the pregame show. But you got into a routine with it where, like, okay, I'm turning here, I know what time, I know about, around the traffic, because, by the playoffs, like, it was like, okay, this is set. I've been doing this for every home game at this point. The NFC Championship game, that's when they decided to change it all up. That's when they decided, you know what, that thing that you've been doing all season long and you've gotten used to, no, we're going to make it go all the way down and wrap her. And I'm like, what in the world are you dipshits thinking? But that is how the city runs things. It doesn't have to be that way. New England, if you want to go to a Patriots game, it's literally one road in and one road out. That's a nightmare. Philadelphia has all these options, all these streets. And then you've got SEPTA as well. And then you've got the Ubers and the ride shares. And yet we make it difficult. Look, credit to FanDuel for stepping in. And I'm sure next week the sports books might be fighting amongst themselves to step in again to get this good publicity. But it's an embarrassment that it's gotten this far. And the parking situation and the driving situation, getting to and from a stadium, has been an embarrassment for far too long. I am pleading with the city officials. Just hire some engineer from MIT. He will figure it out in a day on how to quickly and adequately get people in and out of the stadium so you're not sitting there waiting an hour plus to simply get out of a parking lot. And that is what happens. That is an issue. It's not that difficult. But yet Cheryl Parker wants to get on a microphone and, remind everybody that she didn't take a raise. Yeah. If you can't tell, I don't really think highly of her. Once again, though, I'm not going to get into politics. Because I'll end up getting called a lip cuck soy boy, which is accurate, by the way. Subscribe, that'd be cool. Subscribe and like. I need subscribers. You guys know that at this point. But obviously, we're 1 day away from the Eagles. I don't know when you guys watch this, but right now we're 1 day away. And I will finish it with a very hearty Go Birds! Well, college football was a buzz this week. It's not only the return of college football, but we got a look at Chapel Bill, UNC Football, with their new head coach, Bill Belichick. And how did it turn out? They got stomped. Yeah, and I feel like this was the most obvious outcome that we could have imagined. Like, if you thought about it logically, this is exactly how it would have played out. UNC Football not rising back up through the ashes, which I don't know how you rise up when you've never been up in the first place. It's not like UNC Football is a powerhouse, but I find the irony in that this game against TCU, the UNC alumni is out in full spirit, right? To see Bill Belichick, arguably the greatest coach of all time, lead their alma mater to what? To getting curb stomped. How did you not see this playing out? Let's just go over some facts real quick. Bill Belichick, without Tom Brady, is 70-93 as a head coach. 70-93. Do you hear that? Go to the front door and let that sink in. Okay? He's 70-93. Before Tom Brady, he walked into a decent situation in New England with a franchise quarterback in Drew Bledsoe. He had one winning season. The wheels started coming off. And then obviously Bledsoe gets injured. Tom Brady walks in and the rest is history, right? And that is when we start hearing about the legend and the aura of Bill Belichick. Before that, Bill Belichick was a lot like his coaching tree. It was arrogant and egotistical coordinators who hadn't won dick all, but who had an aura about them that was they were something. even though they weren't. And I'm talking like the Eric Manginis, the Matt Patricias, that like arrogance of like, well, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I have a pencil. It's behind my ear. I can use it whenever I want. The man genius effect. And obviously, when you look at Bill Belichick's coaching tree, it's not great. I mean, even when you look at Nick Saban, yes, he's arguably the greatest college coach of all time, but his head coaching experience in the NFL left a lot to be desired. So he was that. He was a very arrogant and egotistical coordinator turned head coach who wasn't very good at the job and who was pissing off people left and right. And then he goes to New York, and he's the coordinator of the Jets under Bill Parcells. And he's got a provision in his contract that if Bill Parcells isn't the head coach, he would automatically become the head coach. And when that time comes, he walks up to the podium and he says, thanks, no thanks, I'm going up to New England. And it didn't really look like New York was all that upset for a few years there because, as I said, Bill Belichick wasn't this success story. But it wasn't until a sixth-round pick and Tom Brady was forced into duty that all of a sudden it was like, this guy is a genius. Bill Belichick has reinvented the game. And obviously, when Brady leaves, the first thing he does is win a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Proving that, yeah, it was Brady, it wasn't necessarily Belichick. That Belichick's gruff nature with his players finally wore down on the greatest player he ever had in Tom Brady, who said, you know what, I don't need this shit. I'm leaving. So why did we expect a 73-year-old man who never had a good bedside manner to be able to relate and rally the troops of 20-year-olds? Like, we really expected that. You expected that. I understand in the day and age of NIL, hiring a Bill Belichick is going to get you a lot of money. And I'm talking about from donors. Donors hear the name Bill Belichick, and all of a sudden the checkbooks come out. And for good reason, But we saw it. They've been bamboozled. Because Bill Belichick comes into Chapel Hill to collect a large paycheck. Obviously, nepotism runs rampant in the Belichick household because we have to have Steven come along too. And we saw what happened. And Steven is apparently the heir apparent to the job. Think about that for a second. Like, what has Steven Belichick ever done to warrant a head coaching job or even a coordinator job for that matter, other than be Bill's son? But yet here we are. And UNC fans have been humbled, and they learned a valuable lesson that you don't drink the Kool-Aid. That a 73-year-old man is going to have trouble relating to the players. And that is exactly what we've seen. In the day and age of NIL, I think it's important to remember that I think now more than ever, you need a personable players coach. Because talented players aren't going to put up with Bill Belichick calling them out in team meetings, which apparently is exactly what he did in New England. He would call out Tom Brady constantly for mistakes because Brady was the best player on the team. He thought he could take it, when for years he did, by the way, but it was a message to the team. If Brady can get called out, I can get called out. It's an accountability thing. And I'm not here to tell you that Belichick isn't a good coach. I think he's a good coach. But is he a good head coach? And is he a good head coach for the day and age of college football? The answer by far is no. This was a disaster from the get-go. This was a quick money grab by UNC's athletic director to get donor money pouring into the team, a team that has never really been competitive, never really been great. They've had a few players here and there that have flashed, the Julius Peppers of the world. Obviously, who was the quarterback from Chicago a couple years ago that flamed out that I'm drawing a blank on? You'll comment. Hit thumbs down for that because I don't know ball. But they've obviously had players, but this was a quick cash grab. And it will go down as an epic, epic failure. This is not the first game they will get blown out in. Mark my words. They will get blown out in a lot of games this year. And the rhetoric won't be, did Belichick ever have it? The rhetoric will be, he's lost it. And I would question, did he ever have it? Did he ever have it, or did he luck into finding the best quarterback ever who walked into a situation where he could take Belichick's shit and thrive in that atmosphere and thrive and make everybody around him better? I think it was that. So, no, I was not surprised that TCU boat raced the shit out of UNC. I expect it many, many times this season. I just can't believe that UNC, and like this is a big story, that this wasn't the obvious. But, all right, subscribe, please. I need subscribers. That's all I got. Go Birds. A 41-33, by the way. Go Birds.